YouTube. Welcome everybody to today's live stream. I'm going to say a quick hello in the chat just to make sure that the chat is working. So let me get to my chat here. Hold on one second. Oops. There's always some glitch here. Let me get to my live stream. And it doesn't want to let me get to my live stream, but I know I'm live. So again, there's always got to be something going on. I will fix that. I'll find a way to get to my live stream pretty quick. In the meantime, I know you guys are just joining me, so welcome again to today's class, the top 5 tips for perfect linking and connected speech. And here we go. I think I have my, there we go. I got my chat ready to go. So I'm just going to give a quick hello to everybody. Thanks for joining me. So if you have the chat ready to go, please put in there where you're from and, your name, where you're from, and where you're joining me from, because I always like to know where people are from, what time zones people are in, because I know some people, it could be the middle of the night. For me in San Diego, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. So please just say a nice hello. And also you can use the chat throughout the entire class. If you have any questions, please type it into the chat and I'll answer all the questions at the end. All right, so let's jump in and kind of get started with our presentation. Today, it's going to be about a 1-hour class. We might go a little over in time, depending on how fast or slow I talk. But there will be plenty of time at the end of today's session for question and answers. So feel free to type questions into the chat throughout the class today. And if I can't get to your question today, please submit your question as a comment in the underneath this video once it's been published. So it will be published on my YouTube channel shortly after the broadcast is done, and you can always put your questions under there. So let me get my slides ready to go. All right, and let's jump in and get started. Okay, so I want to just say a quick hello to anybody who hasn't met me yet. My name is Julie Cunningham, and I own a company called San Diego Voice and Accent. And you are here with me on YouTube, so you have found my YouTube channel, the same name, San Diego Voice and Accent. And I'm a professional American accent coach and vocal coach. So if you're interested in learning more about me and my company and maybe how I can help you or how we can work together, please look in the description below for links to my website, links about one-on-one training if you're interested in private training. I also have an online training platform called English Pro that you can join for a monthly subscription, and included in that is a weekly live class that where you can work with me during the class one-on-one. So there are several options if you're interested in working with me or polishing up your pronunciation or your vocal skills. Look in the description below to learn more about how we can work together. So once again, we are live today, so any issues that happen with technology or any flubs or anything, you will see it all. And again, this video will be published on my YouTube channel today under the Live tab, shortly after YouTube processes it and gets it ready to go. Again, if you have any questions, please put any question you have in the chat, and I'll do a Q&A at the end. Also, if I happen to miss your question or you're watching the replay, please put your question as a comment in the video once it's been published. And for all of you who have signed up for today's live class, you should have received an email that prompted you to download the free guidebook to the sounds of American English. So this is a wonderful resource for anybody who is training their accent. So I just want to make sure that you got your free guidebook If you didn't get your free guidebook or you're watching the replay, you can look in the description below for information on how to sign up and get the free guidebook. So I'm just going to show a quick little video about what's included in this guidebook. So it teaches you every sound of American English, every vowel and consonant, with pictures, IPA charts and IPA symbols, MRIs, or kind of like x-rays of a person when they're saying that sound. And also I've included the audio of each sound, so you can click the little audio icon and you should be able to play that sound. You have to be connected to the internet to listen to it, so that's just one thing. That's where all those audio files are housed. They're housed online, so you have to be on the internet for them. But this is a wonderful free tool that I think anybody can benefit from, even if you're a beginner, just now learning English or just now practicing your pronunciation, or if you are advanced and very fluent in English and have been practicing your pronunciation for a while. So this is a wonderful tool that everyone should have, and it's free. So again, go to the description below to find the link that you can so you can sign up to get the free guidebook. All right, so let me just take a quick sip of herbal tea, and we'll jump into my 5 tips on linking and connected speech. And first, I want to give you a little bit of background information about what linking is. Okay, so this might be a little of a review for most of you, or the term linking could be brand new. So I want to make sure that I'm covering all my bases here. So I'm going to give a little bit of background information and then we'll move right into the tips. So what is linking? So this is a great example. In written English, there is space between words. So you can see the sentence here, do you know what I mean? And there's obviously spaces between each word. But in spoken English, there is no space. So when I read this sentence, or when I say it to a person or to a friend or whatever, do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It sounds like one big word. So that's linking. So it only happens in spoken English. And if you had never heard English being spoken before, maybe you only had access to English books. Okay, and so you learned English by reading and writing. You never listened to it. There's no TV, there was no podcasts, there was no movies. And then you suddenly heard people speak in English. You probably would not be able to distinguish between words in their speech because of linking, because English speakers don't talk like this. There's no space between those words. Everything links together seamlessly, or as seamlessly as possible. So that's what linking is. It refers to the way that syllables and words connect to each other in spoken English. I use the terms linking and connected speech interchangeably. They refer to the same process. So you just might hear some accent teachers or English teachers say linking. Some might say connected speech. It's referring to the same thing. Linking can occur within words between syllables and or across word boundaries. So this is typically where linking, it gets a little tricky for a lot of people because, for example, here's linking within a word. Now, you're probably already pronouncing the word doing just like this. Doing, doing. You're using linking to connect those 2 syllables. Do-ing, doing. It sounds like one word, right? 2 syllables, but one word. It's not pronounced like do-ing, do-ing. There's no stop between the words. They're connected. They're linked. Okay, so you're probably already using this linking between a syllable, doing, between 2 syllables. But when you see the words pick up, especially when you're reading English, your brain wants to say, those are 2 separate words. True, they are. But we know that in spoken English, there typically isn't a space between words. So when this phrase is linked, it sounds closer to pick up, pick up, pick up. It's not pick up, pick up. There's no space between those words. They link together like they're one word, pick up, pick up. And again, probably if you had never heard those words before, you might not know that that's what the person is saying, right? Because it sounds like one word, when in fact it's two. But that's what linking does. It connects words together. Some languages use linking in a very similar way to English, like Spanish, French, German. Some languages don't use linking in the same way, like Japanese, Mandarin, Korean, Vietnamese. So depending on your native language, linking may or may not be challenging. Linking may be the hardest thing for you because your native language doesn't use linking in the same way. So when you speak English, you might put too much emphasis on each syllable. Whereas in English, we have long syllables, short syllables. Those shorter syllables are usually condensed or reduced and then linked together with another syllable. So just very different processes happening there. So it depends on your native language how easy or how hard linking will be for you in English. But just know it's because of your native language, just like everything else having to do with pronunciation and accent. So we're going to jump in now to the first of my 5 tips. And the purpose of today's class is really to teach you these main ways of linking, what types of linking occur in spoken English, and to give you some concrete examples so you can start identifying the linking that you hear in the speech of native speakers and then start imitating it. And we're going to start with vowel to vowel linking. So vowel to vowel linking is when a word or syllable ends with a vowel and the next word or syllable begins with a vowel. Now it's really important. We're talking about the pronunciation, right? Not the spelling. So that will be true for everything I discuss today. It's the pronunciation. What sounds do you hear? Not how are the words spelled? Because let's say, let's just look at this example and you'll get the point. What's the difference between these two phrases? And I have some pictures here just to make it more fun. You ate. You ate. You ate. You ate. Now, you can read the words, and of course they have different meanings because you can see the words that I'm saying. But if you didn't have the words or the pictures, could you hear a difference? No, because of vowel to vowel linking. So this is the crazy thing. They sound identical because between the words you and ate, the word you ends with an oo vowel, and the word ate begins with the a vowel. So you have a vowel to vowel link, and you linked them together. You ate. And we'll talk about that rule in a second. The phrase you wait also ends in a vowel. You wait. So here it begins with a W consonant, but because of the way vowel to vowel linking occurs here, this phrase sounds the same as this one. So it's kind of crazy with vowel to vowel linking because especially you can create pairs of words that do sound the same, right? But because of the context of your conversation, your listening partner will understand which one you said. But if I just looked at you with no context, no conversation, and I just said, you wait, you wouldn't know which one I said, right? But that rarely happens. Typically, you're involved in a conversation and you have context. So this is the crazy thing about vowel to vowel linking compared to other types of linking is it does create words that sound a lot alike, but that's okay. So here's the first rule about vowel to vowel linking. When a syllable or word ends in a front vowel, and we'll talk about front vowels in a second, And the next syllable or word begins with a vowel. You insert a quick y sound to link them. So the y sound, the IPA symbol, it looks like the letter J, but it kind of makes the Y sound in English, y, 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 like in the words yes or yesterday, y. So why this sound? Well, think about the lip and the tongue placement. So here's your example, I am late. And I've highlighted in red the target linking area that we're focused on. It's linking between the word I, which is the vowel I, and the word am, which begins with the a vowel. I am. I am. Just say that a little slowly and feel, what's your tongue doing? At the end of I, where is your tongue in your mouth? I am. I am. So at the end of that front vowel, I, the tongue and the lip placement of that word or that vowel are already in the right area in the mouth to create the y consonant as you transition to the next word am. So you can feel it. I am. There's a little y sound in there as you transition from the I vowel to the next vowel. It's not really there. It's not really there in the transcription. If someone does transcribe it, you might see this symbol, this little J, and it's going to be a small J, and it's going to occur above and between the I vowel and the a and am, a little small j, to let you know that that area is linked with that sound, but you don't necessarily have to overpronounce it. I yam. You're not saying the word yam, but there is a little sound there that connects you. Okay, so that's rule number one when we have front vowels. And let's talk about what those front vowels are. So this rule applies to these front vowels. The E as in see vowel. So here's your example sentence. I see a lot of lights. So this phrase here, see ya, it sounds like this. See ya. See ya. So I keep my vocal cords turned on. See ya. And just let that little y sound connect the two vowels together. Now we have a, like in the word say. I say it is true. So that phrase, say it, sounds like this. Say it. So I'm putting my hand here on my throat to feel my vocal cords vibrating, just to check. Am I stopping my vocal cord vibration? Say it. Say it. Ah, that's not linked. There's a stop there. For this vowel-to-vowel link to occur, the vocal cords need to be on and vibrating. So put your hand here to feel for it. Say it. Say it. Say it. Say it. Okay. I feel it. I hear it. I must be linking it. We also have I, as in my umbrella. So that phrase is connected and sounds like my umbrella, my umbrella. And then the last vowel is oi, like in the word boy. The boy is happy. Boy is sounds just like that. Boy is, boy is, boy is, boy is. You use that y sound to link the two vowels together, and you keep your vocal cords turned on. So that's rule number one. So vowel-to-vowel linking, this first rule, and we'll do rule number two in a second. These rules are not typically that hard to imitate, but it's really hard to remember to do it because some languages don't connect vowels at all. So you just might have the habit of always inserting what's called a glottal stop between your vowels. And sometimes native speakers do too. So this type of linking, vowel-to-vowel linking, doesn't occur 100% of the time when it can. Sometimes native speakers won't do it, but lots of times they will. So But the thing is, it happens so quickly. If you're stopping your voice, you might not hear it or feel it. So you have to really go a little slower and use the tactile cue of feeling for vocal cord vibration. If you feel something suddenly stop, then you've broken the link. And so you might be doing that habitually, and it just gets really hard to monitor. So start with these easy phrases and feel for the vibration and get in the habit of keeping the voice on, and then start monitoring your actual speech and see if you're doing it there. All right, so now let's move on to rule number 2. So we did the front vowels. Now what about back vowels? So when a word or syllable ends in a back vowel, and the next syllable or word begins with a vowel, you insert a quick w consonant to link them. So why this consonant? Well, again, think of the lip and tongue placement. So here's your example sentence. You are late. All right, so when I say the oo vowel in you, my lips and my tongue are already in the right area to create the w consonant. So that's why a little w consonant is produced as you transition from you to the next vowel, excuse me, ah and r. You are. You are. You can use the same tactile cue of putting your hand on your throat to feel the vocal cord vibration. You are. It's not you are. There's no stop. Remember, this is linked with continuous vocal cord vibration. You are. You are. And you can see my lips are rounded, just like for the W. You are. That's why that W exists between those two vowel sounds. And again, similar to the y vowel in the previous example, if you see this transcribed, this little linking w transcribed in an IPA transcription, it'll be a smaller W symbol, and it'll be above and between the oo and the r in the IPA transcription. But it's not always transcribed. It just depends on the person who's doing the transcription. And so what are these back vowels? So let's say these three back are the three back vowels that this rule applies to. Oo as in who. So here's your example phrase. Who is? Who is? Who is there? That's how it sounds. Who is? Like it's one word. Who is? Who is? Right? If I say that a bunch of times, it does sound a little strange, doesn't it? Who is? Who is? It could be one word. You never know. It sounds like it. But, you know, in the context of the conversation, your listening partner will hear two separate words there because they're familiar with spoken English. Now the next back vowel, O, as in show. Show us. So again, don't let the spelling fool you here. You're going to say, oh, but show ends in a W. That's the spelling. So, but it ends in the O vowel, the O diphthong. So that's a vowel sound linking to the vowel sound in us, So back vowel linking to a vowel. So you're going to insert the W consonant. Show us. Show us. And then ow as in how. Same thing, you see a W there, that's a consonant, but that's the spelling of the word. We're talking about the pronunciation. So ow ends in that, how ends with the ow vowel, and it's linking to the ah in often. So how often sounds like how often, how often, how often. It's connected together with no breaks. Your vocal cords continue to vibrate. So that's tip number 1, vowel to vowel linking. And again, this type of linking is not necessarily that hard to imitate. It's just hard to remember to do it because you just might be in this habit to break your vowels, and it's really hard to monitor. So putting your hand on your throat will be really helpful to feel for the vibration and making sure that you maintain vocal cord vibration. You don't want it to stop when you're doing vowel to vowel linking. All right. Now tip number 2. So now we have consonant to vowel linking. So there are several rules here, and I did my best to make this as clear as possible, but I understand there's a lot of information here. So bear with me. You can rewatch this live video, take some notes, but this is the best way that I could give you all the information so you kind of have concrete examples. So rule number 1. So this rule applies to all consonants except for stops and affricates, and we'll get to the rule about those in a second. So your stops are the P, B, T, D, K, G consonants, those 6 consonants, and your affricates are the CH and the J sounds, okay? So all the other consonants. Then we have to break it up into further groups. We have voiced consonants where the vocal cords are vibrating. You can feel that, like maybe for the V consonant, V, V, or the M consonant, M. You feel your vocal cords vibrating. We also have voiceless consonants, like the S consonant, S. There's no vibration there. Okay, so we have these other further groups of consonants. But for voiced consonants, you're going to use continuous vocal cord vibration to link the syllables and words together. So don't stop your voice. So again, you can feel for this if you put your hand on your throat. So pronounce it like it's one word. So here's your phrase to practice with. I have a lot to do. And the target link is between have and a, which is reduced to the sound Have a, have a. Now again, don't look at the spelling here because you're going to say, oh, the word have, it ends with an E. That's a vowel. It's a vowel letter, but not the sound. It ends with the V consonant sound. So this is a consonant to vowel link. Have, v, v. So allow that V sound to continue over to the beginning of the next word. Have a, have a. Have a. Okay, so very similarly, when you have a voiceless consonant, you're going to use continuous airflow to link the syllables and words together. So don't stop the air. So pretend like it's one word. So we have this is hard. That's your phrase. So that target link sounds like this is, this is. So allow that S consonant or whatever it is to kind of carry you over to the beginning of the next word, and then the S consonant begins the next word. This is, this is, this is. Okay, so again, continuous airflow. That's the link here, continuous airflow or continuous vocal cord vibration, depending on the consonant. All right, so now rule number 2. So we're getting a little bit more specific. Stops except for D and T. D and T have their own rule. All right, so not to be too confusing here, but so we have stop consonants P, B, K, and G, and then the affricates CH and J. So here's the rule. The ending stop or affricate, so that consonant, will resyllabify and move over to the beginning of the next word, which is the word that begins with the vowel, or syllable that begins with the vowel. So resyllabify. So think about syllables. You know, you have your syllables. So in this example, that consonant is going to be at the end of a syllable, right? And it's going to link to a vowel that's at the beginning of a syllable or word. But when it resyllabifies, it moves over. It resyllables. It moves over to the beginning of that next syllable. So it actually jumps over. So that's why it resyllabifies. So the linking is going to sound different than the spelling, for sure, than how it's spelled. You're never going to spell it this way, but this is just how it links. So we have a lot of examples here. Cup of tea. It sounds like this. Cup of tea. Cup of. Cup of. Cup of. It's not cup of. That P now is going to move over to the next word, cup of, cup of. Now, again, this type of linking is not super difficult to imitate. It's just remembering to do it. But as soon as you get it, you're going to hear it and it's going to just kind of flow very naturally. So let's keep going. Judge a lot. So now we have a word that's ending in the j consonant, linking to a vowel. So it sounds like this. Jalot. Jalot. Judge a lot. Judge a lot. It's not judge a lot. It's judge a lot. Judge a lot. Judge a lot. Okay, that's the link. That final J sound moves over to the beginning of the next word. Same thing with churches. It's not church is. It's churches. 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 Okay, that CH is now over to the beginning of the next word. Now, here we have a couple of examples where this happens within a word. And again, sometimes the within word linking is easier because you're probably really good at reading English. That's one way that most people learn other languages is through reading and writing. So you've seen baggage as one word. So it seems very easy and likely, oh yeah, that's how you're going to pronounce it because your brain sees it as one word. Okay, but really what this is consonant to vowel linking within a word because your first syllable is bag and your next syllable is idge. Bag, idge. But that bag, that final g sound, moves over to the beginning of the next syllable. So when you say it and you link it, it sounds like baggage, baggage, not baggage, baggage, baggage. Same thing with this word pop over. Sounds like pop over, not pop over. Pop over, pop over, pop over. Okay, so this is our consonant to vowel rule where things resyllabify and move over to the beginning of the next syllable or word. And now we have the stops T and D. So if you've ever heard me talk about the flap or you're familiar with the flap at all, here's your flap. This is the flap rule when you're talking about how the flap is used when linking. So if the final T or D are between vowels and unstressed, they will most likely become the flap. Okay, so we have two things happening here. We have the T or D kind of changing to a different sound, a different pronunciation, the flap. And then we have that resyllabification happening again. The flap also resyllabifies and moves over to the beginning of the next syllable or word. Okay, so this happens within a word. This happens across word boundaries, just like all linking does. So we have the first example, the phrase, put it on. Okay, there I did not use a flap, put it on. There was no linking happening there, put it on. Now let me pronounce it a little bit more naturally and put the flap in there and you're going to hear it's going to sound very different. Put it on versus put it on. Put it on. Put it on. Put it on has the flap. So I've transcribed it here just phonetically and I've represented the flap with the letter D. But just note the flap is like a very fast D sound in English. It's not a true D. But you can think of it that way if you're not familiar with the flap. If you want more information about the flap, I have lots of videos on my YouTube channel and also my website where I go over linking with the flap and how to pronounce the flap. But it's just a very quick flap of the tongue tip to the roof of the mouth. Where the D and T are made in the mouth, you just kind of, the tongue, it just goes very quickly. Put it on, put it on. Put it on, da 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 da. Okay, so that's what this phrase typically will sound like. It's not very likely that a native speaker is going to use the true T, put it on. That's not likely. It's more likely that this phrase, because of the way the syllable stress breaks down, and they're going to put in the flap there. Put it on, put it on. And you can hear it's a lot smoother, a lot easier to link, and it has much better rhythm and cadence and all of that stuff that spoken English is known for. So we also have the flap in the middle of a word, metal, okay? Metal. So if you were to look this up in a dictionary, it might show you the IPA as met-ol. You're going to see that T sound possibly at the end of your first syllable, met-ol. But that's not how it's pronounced. That T will change to a flap because of the vowels and the stress. It's between vowels and it's unstressed. And it will re-syllabify. And it sounds like me-dol, metal, metal, metal. That's the most common, most natural pronunciation of this word, using this flap sound and that re-syllabification of the flap. It moves over to the beginning of the next syllable. Same thing with party. Par-D. Not part-E. Par-D. D. Party. Party. That word has the flap. And then another phrase here where you have lots of flaps, hit it out of the park. Okay, that's my natural speed, but you can see here it sounds like hi, di, dow, dove. Hit it out of, hit it out of. So all of those T's become flaps and they all re-syllabify and move over to the beginning of the next word or syllable. So here's without linking, hit it out of the park. So lots of stops, lots of t sounds there. So let's get rid of that, use the flap, and now it sounds very smooth. Hit it out of the park. Hit it out. So it's kind of like gymnastics for your tongue. You're going to feel your tongue kind of bouncing a lot there. Hit it out of the park. All right, so I like practicing the flap. I think it's fun. I think there are certain phrases in English that are fun to pronounce with the flap, but maybe I'm just kind of a nerd and maybe none of this is fun. But sometimes I get really excited if there's a word or phrase that's been fun to say. I'll say it a bunch of times. This might be one of them. But you might find certain phrases are fun to practice. Like I always like to practice the phrase Little Italy. In San Diego, there's a really cool neighborhood called Little Italy. One of the funnest neighborhoods in San Diego. But I just like saying that phrase. So maybe that's a nerdy thing, but it's a little tidbit about me. Okay, so that is tip number 2, consonant to vowel linking. Let's move on to the third type of linking that we're going to discuss today, consonant to consonant. Now, this is probably the most challenging type. The most challenging type of linking because there are lots of consonants in English, so there are many, many consonant to consonant combinations. So there's lots of things that can happen here. We're just going to cover a few of the most common consonant to consonant links in English due to time. And that reminds me, let me just check our time, and we're good. So just believe me, there are more things that can be happening here in this consonant to consonant linking area. But we'll do our best to cover the most common ones. And also remember that sometimes there really isn't a rule to apply. There's not a trick. That changes to the flap, and that's how native speakers are doing it. There's maybe not a trick here. It's just native speakers smooth out that connection as best as possible. So it still sounds linked, right? There's still not a huge gap between the words, but there's no extra little thing happening. It's just a smooth transition. So sometimes I apologize, I can't give you a trick or a rule. You just have to smooth out that transition. But we'll talk about some rules here. All right, so there's a lot on this slide, so we'll go through it step by step. So this is rule number 1, and this refers to stop consonants except for T. Of course, the T consonant has its own rule, right? So if you've done any kind of pronunciation training in English, you'll know that the T consonant changes. That's the one that changes all the time. It's a common consonant in spoken English, and the more common it is, the more words it's in, the more changes that are going to happen to it to help spoken English be smooth. right? Never written English. This is just spoken English. We want to smooth out those connections. So this T sound will get changed a lot. All right, so here we are. Stop consonants except for T. The final stop consonant, if it links up to another consonant, it's typically unreleased or held, and then the next consonant is pronounced normally. All right, so that means for P and B, this means the lips stay closed at the end of the sound. So it's an unreleased P or an unreleased B consonant, or a held P or a held B consonant. That means if I were to say the word pop, P-O-P, it ends in a P sound. So pop. Clearly that final P was not unreleased, right? Pop. Here's what it sounds like and what it looks like when it's released, or excuse me, unreleased or held. Pop. So the lips stay closed at the end of that sound. You don't have the release of pop. It's pop. Okay? So that's the unreleased P. For K and G, this means that the tongue remains in contact with the velum or the soft palate at the end of the sound. So when you pronounce K and G, the tongue moves back and then it stays back there. Usually there's the release, like in the word back. B-A-C-K, ends in a K consonant, back. You can hear that release, but when we're linking to another consonant, typically that K is unreleased, back. My tongue moves back for that K sound, but I just don't drop the tongue. And for D, this means that the tongue tip remains in contact with the alveolar ridge at the end of the sound. This is the unreleased D consonant, and I have done a few videos on this one in particular because it can be really challenging. Lots of times people will substitute a glottal stop instead of a D, which my ears will hear as a T, and we'll get to that rule next. So the unreleased D is like in the word, 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 word. My tongue tip came up for the beginning of the D. There was some vibration from my voice and where the tongue tip was touching, and it stayed. I didn't say word. I said word, word. That's the unreleased D. Now, sometimes there is a mini release of the tongue or lips depending on the speaker, right? But you're not going to get this fully released consonant. So let's go through a couple of examples here. The word popcorn. Okay, so popcorn. I feel like I pronounced that right then with an unreleased or a held P. Popcorn. So we have a P, a final stop consonant, linking to an initial K sound. So we have a P linking to a K. All right, and P is a stop consonant. So what typically will happen is that stop consonant will be unreleased or held, and then the K, or whatever consonant comes next, will be pronounced normally. Popcorn, popcorn, popcorn. It's not popcorn, popcorn, pop. You don't have that full release. You might have a small release, popcorn, pop, just a little one, but maybe not. Bad dog. Okay, that phrase. This link is a little easier because you're linking a final D to an initial D. So it's just like there's one D sound in there, but it still is unreleased. That first part, think about it as unreleased. It's not bad dog, bad dog, bad. It's bad dog, bad dog, bad dog, bad dog. My tongue tip only comes up once for that link. There's not a double. It's just once because that first D is unreleased. And then the phrase back door can be an unreleased K because you're linking a K to a D, or it could have a mini release. I tend to have a mini release when I'm linking a K or a G to another consonant, but not always, but probably like 90% of the time, I'll pronounce this phrase as back door, back door, instead of back door, back door, back. I just have a little release there, but it's not back door, back door. All right, so now you've got stop consonants. Now you have the T consonant. All right, so this is your glottal stop T. So again, I have plenty of videos about glottal stop T on my website and also my YouTube channel about how glottal stop T, how it happens in words and when linking. So here's the rule about the glottal stop T as it is involved with linking. When a final T consonant links up to another consonant, it is typically pronounced like a stop T, also called a glottal stop or a glottal stop T. I use all of those terms interchangeably, which is made with the vocal cords, not the tongue. All right, so very quickly, your glottal stop is the sound that you make when you say the phrase, uh-oh, uh-oh. It's that period between those two sounds, uh-oh, where there is no sound. It's the absence of sound. Uh-oh, because your vocal cords are closed. They're not vibrating anymore. So it's kind of like a gap in sound. Uh-oh. If you're making the glottal stop correctly, you can't breathe and you can't talk at the same time because your entire throat is closed. So, uh-oh, that's the glottal stop. It occurs in lots of languages, and it also occurs in English. And in English, that sound, or that movement, can be a T, depending on the word. So when we're talking about this linking with the glottal stop, the T is there. That final T is there, but it's represented by a glottal stop T rather than the T that's made in the mouth, the true T. So you're not dropping the T, not in this rule. The T is there. It's just produced in the throat. Sometimes this final T may also be pronounced as an unreleased T. Now, I define this as the tongue tip comes up to make that T sound and the vocal cords close, but the tongue tip does not drop. Okay, so similar to that unreleased D sound, you have your tongue tip coming up, oh, oh, oh. So again, they sound the same, right? Tongue tip comes up, but you're still really stopping the sound here. You're just not releasing it. It's not oh, or something like that. There's no t. It's the tongue tip comes up and stops there. So it depends on the speaker. It depends on what sounds are surrounding the T at that moment. Maybe if there's an N or an L or another alveolar consonant that's next to the T, depending on the syllable breakdown, your tongue tip might come up to either pronounce that other sound, and then it's there for the T, or it's preparing for the next sound. So it all depends. But so you might find, oh, my tongue tip comes up. Or your tongue tip is going to come up because of habit, because you're used to pronouncing this T as a true T, which does involve the tongue tip coming up and down. So you might have to start to train yourself to produce this like a glottal stop with no tongue movement. Uh-oh, just the vocal cords. But let's give you some examples here. So I have a 2-word phrase, hot dog, okay? So it's typically pronounced as, that final T is typically pronounced as a glottal stop T, just vocal cords. You're linking a final T to a D. So there you have your T to consonant, consonant to consonant rule. Hot dog, hot dog, hot dog. I typically pronounce that final T as a glottal stop. Same thing with nightmare. So now you have the linking happening within a word, but it's the same process. Your first syllable is night. Your second syllable is mare. So you have a final T linking to an M. So that T typically will become a glottal stop. Nightmare, nightmare, not nightmare, nightmare, not typically. They can. A native speaker could always do that if they wanted to, or if they wanted to just emphasize that word for some reason, or maybe it's their particular style. They love pronouncing the word nightmare like nightmare. I don't know. I think it sounds more natural most of the time if you substitute this glottal stop, because that's just the way that most native speakers are going to pronounce it. And then the two-word phrase, not the, not the. Typically that T in not is going to be a glottal stop T, not the. At least that's how I typically will pronounce that phrase. All right, so now we have another rule here where consonants are dividing and resyllabifying. Okay, so this one is very similar to the consonant to vowel rule, but now you have two consonants that are going to split first. So when a word ends in two consonants, also called a consonant cluster, and links up with a vowel, the two consonants split up, and that last consonant will move over, will resyllabify, to the beginning of the next word. So let me just read you these phrases, and it's gonna make sense when you hear it. The words help out sound like help out, not help out. That final P is going to split away from the L and move over to the next word. Help out, help out, help out. Send it, send it, send it. You can hear that D has now moved over to the beginning of the next word. Passed out, passed out, passed out. That final T consonant sound has moved over to the beginning of the next word. Now the word passed, it looks strange, right? Because you see S's, you see an E, and you see a D, but that ED ending is one sound. It's the T consonant sound. So passed out, passed out. It's actually the ST, passed out, where the T breaks apart, breaks away, and goes to the beginning of the next word. Work a lot, work a lot, work a lot. Brand of, not brand of, brand of. That N and D split, and the D moves over to the beginning of the next word. All right, this one's also not too challenging to imitate. It's just kind of hearing it and understanding the process that's happening. All right, so here's our last consonant to consonant rule before we move on, and it's about 11:51 right now. So we've been going for a little over 50 minutes. Don't worry, we will finish on time. So here is something called assimilation. So we'll talk a little bit more about assimilation on the next slide, but I want to cover it here as well, because we're talking about linking consonants that have different voicing, okay? And so you're going to hear me talk about this again, but this applies mainly to fricatives and affricates, so those groups of sounds. When two linking consonants differ by voicing, meaning one consonant is voiced, maybe the Z consonant, Z, and the next consonant or the consonant it links up to is voiceless, like maybe the S consonant, S. That first consonant, the Z, might change its voicing to be more similar to the second consonant. And this process is called assimilation. When two sounds will change features of how it's being pronounced to be more similar, okay? And this helps that link to be easier and smoother. So now we're talking specifically about voicing. So consonants that differ by voicing, how do you link those together? This is one thing that can happen. So the phrase was so typically sounds like was so. So was ends in the Z consonant sound. So begins with the S consonant sound. So that Z will either reduce its voicing or drop it completely. So it sounds more like an S. So probably there's a little bit of voicing at the beginning, but maybe the last 75% of that Z sound is an S. Was so. Was. It's not was so, was so. That's really hard to do, to maintain that full voicing of that final Z. When you're linking, nope, you just drop out that voicing. Some you drop out very much completely, like the phrase have to. This is a common phrase in English, that final V in have, when it links up to the voiceless consonant T, you pronounce it like an F, have to. The voicing is gone completely. I have to do it, have to. Okay, so that one I really feel no voicing at all. It's pronounced more like an F. Huge tiger. Here we have a final J consonant linking to a voiceless T consonant. So the voicing of the J in huge is either reduced or dropped completely. Huge tiger. I feel it a little bit. I feel a little bit of voicing there. Huge, huge tiger. But maybe for some people it's like, oh, that really does feel like a CH sound. But it's not. It's still a J, J sound, but the voicing has been reduced or dropped. Huge tiger, huge tiger, huge tiger. Okay, so this rule can really help to simplify a lot of your linking if you're having trouble, if you're really focusing on final consonant voicing, which some of you might be. It's still important to focus on, but just note when you're linking, sometimes that final consonant, the voicing, might get dropped. All right, so consonant to consonant. This slide is a continuation of consonant to consonant, but we're talking specifically about additional assimilations. All right, so again, like I mentioned, there's lots of consonant to consonant combinations in English. So there's lots of things that can happen. And assimilation, this is the process of changes that occur, that can occur to the pronunciation of consonants when two consonants link up with each other. So again, consonant to consonant linking. We just talked about voicing. Now we're going to talk about other features of the pronunciation of these consonants that can change. But it can happen to any feature of the consonant's pronunciation, the voicing, the placement of the tongue, the placement of the lips. Typically that first consonant is going to change something about its pronunciation to be more similar to the second one. And sometimes with these assimilations that we're going to talk about next, an entirely new sound is created when things they both change. That first final consonant changes, that second consonant changes, and then they make a totally new sound when you link them together. All right, so it gets a little bit strange to discuss, but we'll talk about the three most common types of assimilation just due to time, but there are plenty more that happen here. So your first assimilation that you're going to practice is when you have a word or syllable that ends with an S consonant, and the next word or syllable begins with the Y consonant. An entirely new sound is created, the SH consonant. And you'll see in all these examples, we're always linking to a Y consonant, and that's because the words you and your are really common in English. And so that's typically where these assimilations are going to happen, but it happens with other words that begin with Y. But in my examples, you'll see that I'm using the word you and your because those pronouns are pretty common in English. So applying the rules of assimilation number 1, bless you, bless you. Okay, you can pronounce it that way. You don't have to link it with this assimilation, but you'll hear sometimes people will say, bless you, bless you, bless you. Okay, this SH sound will be substituted instead, and that's what the speaker will use to link those two words together. Bless you. It happens. Now, not always, right? A native speaker can always say bless you, and just make an S to a Y link, that's fine. But sometimes this assimilation will happen. Assimilation number 2, this one's maybe a little bit more common. A final T to a Y consonant gives you the CH sound. So the phrase bet you can be pronounced as bet you. Or if you reduce the oo in you, it can be betcha. I bet you can't do it. I bet you $20. Betcha, 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 ch-ch-ch-cha. That's the CH sound there, linking those two words together. And then we have our third assimilation, a final Z linking to a Y consonant. You get the ZH, zh sound, like in the words treasure or measure. Zh, zh, zh. So the two-word phrase was your. If you reduce the word your to your, like I have here, and you use this assimilation, it sounds like was your. Was your. Was your mom okay? I don't know. Was your brother happy? Was your. Was your. Again, optional. A native speaker can always choose to say was your, was your, was your. But if you use the assimilation, it sounds like was your, was your. And it does happen, especially in fast speech. All right, our final tip today. And this one, if you've never heard of this before, the rule of three, this is a wonderful thing that just might kind of blow your mind a little bit. If you're familiar with this, you still will be learning, oh, that's the rule of three. You can't, oh, I heard the native speaker drop that sound. Oh, and once you take a look, it'll just remind you, oh, yes, it's the rule of three. So this is a great rule. This rule states that when three or more consonants occur next to each other, either within a word or across word boundaries, just like any other linking rule that we've discussed today, the middle consonant can be dropped from the pronunciation because this simplifies the pronunciation. It smooths out the linking. Now, when this middle consonant is a stop consonant, it really does apply much more. Like you're going to hear this rule of three much more often when that middle consonant is a stop consonant, and especially when it's a T or a K, because those consonants break the flow of speech. There's like a T, K. There's just a lot to say, so they get dropped quite a bit because of the rule of three. All right, so here are some examples of within words, you'll see the rule of three, and across word boundaries. All right, so if you live in the US, and I'm not sure if this department or this grocery store or this big box store, it's a store. I don't know if it's in other countries, maybe Canada, I don't know. Costco. Okay, so Costco, the spelling is just like this, Costco. But if you were to look at the IPA, which I don't have available here, but you can kind of see it here based on the spelling. You have an S, a T, and then a K sound, Costco, Costco. But that's not how it's pronounced. It's pronounced just like Costco, Costco. That T is gone. So that's your rule of three. You have an S, T, and a K consonant sound. That T often is dropped, Costco. And that's how you pronounce it. Rule of three makes it much easier than Costco. Here's where you can see it happening across word boundaries. S, T, and a K sound, most common. Okay, now again, this is not obligatory, so native speakers can choose to say most common, most common. I can pronounce that T, that's fine, but I bet you in fast speech, most of the time, most common, most common, most common. Okay, that T is gone. Text message. Here, if you were to look at the IPA, you're going to see 4 consonants in a row. Text. There's a K, there's a T, an S, an M. Okay, here it's typically pronounced as text message. Again, it's a T that was dropped. Text message, not text message, text message. Prompt delivery. Again, we've got 4 consonants here, and the way that I pronounce it, that T is dropped. Prompt delivery, not prompt delivery. You drop one of those middle consonants, it's often going to be a stop consonant, and it's often going to be a T. Prompt delivery. Here we have an SKS ending. So this one is less common for me to pronounce using the rule of 3. When a word ends in SKS, I typically prefer to pronounce S, K, and S. I just like that sound a little bit more, but you can use the rule of 3 here. So this phrase, 3 desks, SKS, that K might drop out and be pronounced as 3 desks, 3 desks. I bought 3 desks today, 3 desks. It can happen, you'll hear it, but again, I probably 90% of the time prefer to pronounce that K, It's just my preference. The word asked has a S, asked, S-K-T. So that middle consonant, that K, is often dropped, and it's pronounced as asked. I asked her. I asked her to do it yesterday. I asked her. Asked her. Asked. Asked. Instead of asked. Okay, so you can simplify that one, take the K out, and it will be fine. Now we have the STS ending. So similar to the SKS ending, here STS, you can drop that middle T. Now this is one that I probably do use quite a bit. Scientists can be pronounced as scientists, tis. No middle T there. Here's the same process happening between words. You have an S, a T, and an S. So again, you can pronounce this phrase, scientist said, as scientists said. The scientist said yes. Scientists said. So you can just extend that S sound and drop the T if you want. All right, so I don't know, let me know in the comments or in the chat if rule of 3 is new for you. Hopefully you've heard this before, but if not, this is going to be great because you'll be able to really start to improve your listening skills and start to understand why this T sound is mysteriously dropped. You know, this could be one of the reasons, or what happened to that K sound? This is one of the reasons. Once you look at the IPA of the pronunciation, and you'll see where those consonants are and how they link up. And then you'll see, rule of 3. All right, folks, thank you so much. So so that's the end of all the content of today's class. Now I'm opening things up for questions. So I'm going to take a look at the chat and just kind of catch up here. I'm not so good at monitoring the chat during the class, but here I am. I'm going to try to come back and read the questions. So go ahead, put your question in the chat now. If you have any questions that I don't answer today, or maybe you have a question that comes up later on, please add a comment to this video once it's been published, okay? And I'll answer your questions there as well. So, great. So Ivan is from San Jose. Hello. Adriana, hello. Hello, Sheba from India. Adriana's from Mexico. Mohammed is from Pakistan. Oh, wow. So it's 11 p.m. all midnight for you. Wow. Thank you so much for joining me. All right. And then we have Miss DMX has some questions here. Let's see. Thank you for this class. You're welcome. My first question, so we link the final letter to the following and final word in a sentence. Example, my brother in arms. My brother in arms. Let me make sure. So we link the final letter to the following and final word in a sentence. So I think your link that you're referring to is between brother and in, in arms. So I'm not quite sure if I understand your question, but the linking here would be my brother. Okay, so between my and brother, there's a vowel linking to a B. There's no rule there. You just keep everything going. My brother. But from brother to the word in, you can use that final R sound to link over to the beginning vowel. My brother in. My brother in. Rin. So allow that final R consonant sound to link you over to in. And then in the phrase in arms, you have another consonant to vowel link. The N in links over to the ah vowel in arms. So my brother in arms, my brother in arms. That's how you can link that phrase. And then you have another question, you and him. Do all words link here? You and him. Yes, you and him. Okay, so the word and typically will become reduced, and you and him. And actually, you and him. What I've done there is I've reduced the word and, A-N-D. It's a conjunction. I've reduced it to just the N sound. So I've said you and You and him. You and him. I'm pronouncing the H in him. Now there's no special link between an N and an H. You just smooth it out. You and him. You and him. So you and, reduced and, you and. So that one definitely has more of a link there. You and. That's a vowel to vowel link if you're looking at the IPA. But then in him, no, there's not really a rule. It's just smoothed out as best as possible. You and him. Yes, affricates are challenging for lots of people too, but they are those are that group of sounds. There's only 2 in English, but it is challenging. Yes, Ivan says very helpful, but need some time to digest. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. There's a lot of information here that I've covered today. And I certainly hope that you will take some time and kind of maybe rewatch the class and add some questions later on, or as time goes on, maybe a month from now, you have questions about linking. So you can come back to this class, add another comment to the replay or another video that I have about linking. And I do my best to answer comments as quickly as I can. Sometimes it's hard to answer completely just within a comment because it just gets to be too complicated to explain with writing. I definitely have to give you the explanation verbally and demonstrate it for you. So that is will lead me to my next slide. Let's see. And then Miss DMX says, awesome, thank you. You're very welcome. Voicing and devoicing. Key to linking. Yes, so there's lots of times where it's a consonant to consonant link and the only difference is voicing, and what do you do? So you can think about changing the voicing of that first consonant to maybe match the voicing of the second consonant and see if that helps things to kind of smooth out just a little bit more. All right, so that looks to be all of the chat questions so far. I just have one more slide for you. So there we go, my thank you slide. So thank you so much for joining me today. Here's how you can find me on all the social media platforms. Again, you found me on YouTube, so that's my channel name, San Diego Voice and Accent. I'm also on Instagram with the same name. I have a Reddit called American Accent. My website is sandiegovoiceandaccent.com. So the name of my company is all spelled out. And if you have questions, there's my email address as well. It's my first name, Julie, Julie, at sandiegovoiceandaccent.com. So again, if you have more detailed questions that I can't answer in a comment, that's where joining English Pro would be helpful, because you can go to a live class and ask me your question there during the class, and I can work with you one-on-one and answer you in real time. If you're interested in a more personalized training, again, look in the description below to see the information about one-on-one private training. So there you can get a fully customized course, and I definitely will be answering all of your questions during every single class. All right, thank you again, everybody, so much for joining me. Be on the lookout for my next live YouTube class. It'll be in about a month, and it's going to be on top 5 tips for perfect vowel and consonant pronunciation. So we'll kind of combine a couple of vowels and a couple of consonants and work on the pronunciation of those sounds. All right, so until then, keep practicing. Again, ask any questions you'd like in the comments below, and I will do my best to answer you. All right, and I hopefully will see you next month for my next live class. All right, until then, have a great day, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.